This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. According to those who research and work in the field, Manitoba is in the midst of a domestic violence epidemic, as is Canada as a whole. The latest case appears to be one that claimed the life of a mother, her children, and a young 17-year-old family member. Experts say more supports and resources are desperately needed before more people die. CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports.
Amanda Clearwater, her 3 small children, the youngest just 2 months old, and her 17-year-old relative.
That's my daughter, and my granddaughter, and my grandson, and that's the baby.
Victims, police say, were killed at the hands of Clearwater's partner and the children's father, Ryan Manakisik, leaving her family suffering an unspeakable loss.
I'm numb. I'm numb. I don't know what to feel. I'm angry.
Manakisik has had brushes with the law. A previous court hearing revealed a history of addiction and mental health issues. In 2019, a judge told him to get help before things spiraled completely out of control, saying, if you don't do something, eventually it's going to cost you your family. He's now charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. But when asked by media, RCMP would not label it a case of domestic violence, which isn't sitting well with experts.
If we don't frame it within the context of intimate partner violence, then I think we are doing a huge disservice. And what we know from homicides in Canada is that it's estimated that about 20% of all homicides in Canada are due to intimate partner violence.
According to Statistics Canada, every 6 days, a woman is killed by her partner or former partner. And Manitoba has the second highest rate of intimate partner violence among Canadian provinces.
We've experienced 7 years of escalating rates of intimate partner violence in this country. It is an epidemic.
Experts say it's often one that is hidden behind closed doors. Studies show 80% of domestic violence cases go unreported.
We need to be looking at our policing strategies, looking at the laws in the country that protect women and families. We need to think about access to treatment and care and services. We need to think about safety for families.
And she says calling it what it is, domestic violence, and stopping it before it's too late. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A new report from the Federal Housing Advocate is calling the prevalence of homeless encampments a life and death crisis, one that needs to end. Housing advocates here in Winnipeg applaud the report, but say the information is nothing new. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us local reaction.
You've seen them along riverbanks, under bridges. The number of homeless encampments across the city and province has exploded in the last few years. In a new report, Canada's Housing Advocate is calling it a national human rights crisis.
We're just supporting people.
Marion Willis's organization helps find homes for people living in bus shelters and encampments. She applauds the report, but says it's long overdue.
There isn't any one strategy that can fix this. We really do need to look at mental health and addictions, because almost all the people that we know out in these encampments, and not 100%, but the majority of people out there are deep into addiction.
Federal housing advocate Marie-Josée Houle says the country needs a national encampments response plan by the end of August, a plan that includes the federal government ending forced evictions from encampments and supporting municipalities. Professor Shauna McKinnon welcomes the recommendations, but isn't mincing words.
It's yet one more report saying what many reports are saying.
McKinnon says the city and province desperately need more housing that's geared to income, not profit.
You know, it's just so outrageous that we see people living in these conditions, and we know why it's happening, we know what we need, and it's just not happening.
In December, the city of Winnipeg was allocated $122 million in federal funding to fast-track more than 3,000 housing units, including 900 units deemed affordable.
We will continue to have discussions.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says housing is a top priority.
The goal has got to be to get people into housing. And so that's the focus, and the more effort we can put in getting housing built and getting those housing units available with wraparound supports, the more successful we're going to be.
Advocates say they hope changes really happen, and soon. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The family of a 26-year-old man from Pimicikamak Cree Nation is desperate to find him.
And if anybody knows where he is or seen him, or Garrett, if you see this, can you call us?
They say Garrett Chesney Trout came to Winnipeg in August for a medical appointment and then decided to stay. Family kept in contact with him on FaceTime and Messenger, but after January 13th, a month ago, they no longer heard from him. Pimicikamak councillor Shirley Robinson says it's been too long and the family needs to find him.
Police and Bear Clan have to take this very seriously, because too many times we have our people missing and not much is being done to find them.
Garrett Trout was last seen at a home in Winnipeg's North End. He's described as 5'7" with a medium build. If you think you've seen him, please call police or Crime Stoppers. A Winnipeg family says a senior spent his last days in neglect at a local care home and an overrun hospital emergency room. CBC's Bryce Hoy has more.
Gary Davlett died last fall, and his family is still grieving. And now they're calling for change in the healthcare system. They say Poseidon Care Home and the Grace Hospital failed the 76-year-old.
Not one, but two systems. They failed him.
CBC isn't naming Davlett's grandchild because of job security risks. Davlett became paralyzed from the chest down in 2021 and then was placed in Poseidon Care Home. On Saturday, November 18th, his grandchild and stepdaughter, Denise Ewell, found him slumped over some pillows by his bed, out of reach from his call button. He said he felt weak, and they also found blood in his catheter bag.
Definitely that situation on Saturday night, in my opinion, was neglect.
An ambulance was called, and when Davlett arrived at Grace Hospital ER, it was full.
It was just wall-to-wall stretches, like all the way along the wall. It was just gridlock.
Ewell says Davlett waited on the stretcher for 20 hours. Then the hospital called her. Both family members say they were told it could be 118 hours until a medicine bed opened up, or they could send Davlett back to Poseidon Care Home.
It was an unreasonable wait to me for him to be waiting to be admitted into a bed in his condition. The clear message was, I'm suggesting he go back to the PCH.
So they sent him back midday on November 19th. But a nurse called Ewell back that night. Davlett's condition was worsening. He was sent back to the Grace on the morning of November 20th, and he died a few hours later. Now we know that same weekend, a patient died after waiting 33 hours for care in the ER on November 18th. That was deemed a critical incident, triggering an investigation.
I guess I kind of wonder how this isn't a critical incident.
Seniors care advocate Eddie Callisto Tavares says in her work, she's heard officials say old people die every day.
Well, it doesn't mean that they have to die without dignity, respect, the care that they deserve. So this family was given no options. It's either leave him in the hallways of the Grace Hospital for 5 days with no one caring for him, or take him back to the long-term care.
Extended Care oversees Poseidon Care Home. Now, they won't comment on this specific case, but they say that they work with families to improve care. Meanwhile, the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority says they're still looking into whether or not Gary Davlett's experience rises to the criteria of a critical incident investigation. Bryce Hoy, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba Hydro's CEO received her walking papers today. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, this dismissal took place after she was criticized by the NDP minister responsible for her corporation.
Manitoba Hydro believes in net zero.
As CEO of Manitoba Hydro, Jay Graywall was in charge of building up Manitoba's electrical generating capacity. In a recent speech, Graywall warned the province may need more power in as soon as 5 years.
There was a perception that we have lots and lots and lots of surplus electricity. I hate to have to say that that is not the case.
In that speech, Grewal said Manitoba needs more wind power and restated plans to find private partners to build wind farms. 2 weeks after that speech, Jay Grewal is no longer the CEO of Manitoba Hydro. Hydro Board Chair Ben Graham says he told Grewal this morning she and Hydro were parting ways after 5 years.
Jay's been here a long time and she's done a lot for this organisation. We just felt as a board it was the right time to make a change and bring a fresh perspective.
Graham says the change was 3.5 months in the making, ever since December, when the new NDP government appointed a new Hydro board. Graham also said the decision had nothing to do with criticism from Adrian Sala, the NDP minister responsible for Hydro, who opposes private wind farms.
We want to ensure that as we meet our energy needs going forward, that we're doing that in a way that has those energy sources being publicly generated.
And what if publicly owned and operated wind farms cost more money than the ones built by the private sector?
Our focus is on ensuring that Manitobans can access affordable energy here in Manitoba. We have confidence in our board that we're going to do that in a good way.
The official opposition is not so confident. After Hydro racked up billions in debt under the watch of Greg Selinger's former NDP government, PC Hydro critic Grant Jackson fears a refusal to consider private wind farms could further drive up Hydro debt.
At what cost will this ideologically rigid new NDP government implement publicly funded infrastructure generating capacity projects?
Hydro has appointed an acting CEO while it looks for a permanent replacement for Grewal. She'll be remembered for managing Hydro through a pair of droughts. What she couldn't manage was a change of government. Bartlett Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Last summer's strike at Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries cost the Crown Corporation around $10 million. Now, that number's an estimate based on projected sales if the month-long labor dispute hadn't happened. The corporation's CEO, Jerry Sull, spoke to legislative committees today, saying liquor and lotteries also faced extra costs, like hiring replacement workers.
We all focus on the bottom line, but I think it's most important to focus on kind of how it impacted our employees. Again, this was a significant impact to their lives, whether it's financial, mental wellness, and again, something we didn't want to put our employees through.
The CEO expects the corporation to make up the lost revenue this fiscal year. He says sales for drinks like coolers and ciders are rising, and a warmer than usual winter has encouraged Manitobans to consume more drinks. A massive leak from a Winnipeg sewage pipe, which started last week, shows no sign of stopping. It is one of the largest spills in recent years. CBC's Cameron McLean brings us more on this and other stories out of City Hall today.
More than 135 million litres of raw sewage has gone into the Red River over the last 6 days. City crews found problems with the pipes at the Abinogi-Nikinaw River crossing in November. Work on a bypass system began on February 5th, but 2 days into that work, the pipe broke. Sewage spills happen regularly in Winnipeg, including this one on the Assiniboine River in 2021. Mayor Scott Gillingham says this shows why the city needs to spend millions to upgrade its sewer infrastructure.
It's indicative, too, of the reality in the city of Winnipeg. We're celebrating 150 years as a city. We have a lot of old infrastructure. I'm not saying our sewer pipes are 150 years old, but some of our water and sewer pipes and infrastructure is very old.
The city hopes to have its bypass system up and running in the next 5 days. In other city news, a motion calling for a living wage for all city workers appears headed for defeat. It called for the city to study the Canadian living wage framework and report to council in September. One estimate pegs a living wage in Winnipeg at $19.21 an hour. The president of the city's largest union says the cost would be minimal.
But what it does, though, is it puts us on a map as being an employer that values workers.
The Executive Policy Committee voted to take no action on the living wage motion today. It still needs a final vote from council. Finally, efforts to clean up the rubble at the former Vulcan Ironworks building have been delayed again. The property was destroyed by a fire in July. Now the owner of the property, Sheldon Blank, is appealing a city order to clean it up. He told the Property Committee yesterday he's fighting a provincial order requiring a wet demolition due to possible asbestos contamination.
We're trying to find a way so that
the demolition, the cost of the demolition doesn't exceed the value of the property.
Blank asked the committee to adjourn hearing his appeal while he negotiates with the province. The hearing was pushed back until April 22nd. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A program that takes gang prevention to young people on social media is being called a success. Over a 12-week period last summer, these animated Gang Life is No Life videos were posted to YouTube, TikTok, and other social media platforms. Instead of glamorizing gang life, these videos showed a grittier side: violence, sexual exploitation. The videos also had a number that kids could text to the link to get services to help them get out of gangs. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says this program did better than expected.
During the last year's campaign, Gang Life is No Life had 11.6 million impressions online, leading to over 150 referrals to the link. These are people who would otherwise join predatory street gangs that are tearing our communities apart.
Wiebe calls the 150 referrals to the link a game changer. Phase 2 of this program will begin soon. Police say agencies across Canada and the U.S. have expressed interest in doing their own similar programs. A new report says Winnipeg is losing ground in hiring enough Indigenous teachers to represent a growing number of Indigenous students. The Winnipeg Indigenous Education Executive Circle says Winnipeg now needs 900 Indigenous teachers to keep pace with the number of Indigenous youth. That's up from 600 last year. Heather McCormick helped put together this report. She says the province must look at other pathways for people to get their education degrees outside of university.
Indigenous people historically haven't had great success or experiences in schools, and so there is some hesitancy, I think, for people to enroll in some of these institutions. And I think having community-based education just provides another pathway for people. But some people do need extra supports. They need the wraparound services. They need smaller classes.
McCormick says the report highlights the need as well for more Indigenous school trustees. A mother in southwestern Manitoba is struggling to find suitable care and supports for her 3 sons, who all have autism spectrum disorder. Ali Pumali and her family moved to Shiloh from Ontario. She says she's found the services for her kids lacking in rural Manitoba. The boys are all under the age of 7, and they need different levels of 24-hour care. CBC's Chelsea Kemp spoke with her about the challenges.
I have 3 autistic kids. We have low support needs at our house. The older 2 boys, they're able to be in a regular classroom with a bit of EA help. And then we have Carson. He has severe autism and a global developmental delay. Right now, that's been your favorite lately. He gets very overstimulated very easily. We had a hard day. A lot of screaming, crying because he can't talk. As you can see, he tries to bite, he pinches, he pulls, he tries to communicate. We just moved back to the province because we didn't have any help in Ontario and we needed family help. And the only thing is, even though we have family help here, there's nothing in Brandon for programming besides physio, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Everything else is in Winnipeg, which makes it quite difficult. We don't have respite. We're on a wait list for funded respite. We've been trying to do self-manage. The only problem is we can't convince anybody to come out to Shiloh. I did need my hair thinned out. I don't work. I am strictly a caretaker. I went back to school to become an autism specialist and a Lego therapist just for him because the wait lists are so long. He needs somebody. So I became therapist instead of mom. We're hoping to get him into a new preschool that's in an actual school. Actually, we're really lucky. His speech therapist has her office in the school. He'll go 2 days a week. And they've managed to get a one-on-one support worker. It's frustrating for him being a parent, watching him have to suffer. We just started working with her though, so.
The story a lot of parents in Manitoba's communities can relate to, I'm sure. Sad news tonight, a Winnipeg Blue Bombers legend has died. The team says Ken Plain passed away at the age of 88. Plain retired in 1967. He made Winnipeg his permanent home, and he was loved. This four-time Grey Cup champion with the Blue Bombers is being remembered as an ambassador for the franchise and the city. Kenny, as he was known, started at both quarterback and defensive back positions. Plain was inducted into the CFL Hall of Fame and the Blue Bombers Ring of Honor. He will be missed. Another great Manitoba athlete is retiring, at least from women's curling. Jennifer Jones says this will be her last Scotties. In a statement, the six-time Scotties champion and Olympic champion says curling has challenged her, has changed her, and called her to be a better person. She says her love affair with curling started when she was just a little girl here in Winnipeg, but now she's going to make time for other opportunities and focus on her family. Jennifer Jones will continue to play mixed doubles with her husband, Brent Legg. The Nestaway River Trail at the Forks is once again open for skating or curling if you'd like. Ice might not be that smooth. It had opened in late January, but you may remember that it lasted only 5 days because of the milder than normal temperatures. The ice is checked daily for safety now. The Forks is reminding skaters to watch signage and only use parts of the trail that are open. And the overland skating rinks at the Forks are open again now as well. Let's check on our weather with Ethan Williams and a look at the forecast.
Well, thanks, Janet. We're seeing some pretty nice and warm afternoon temperatures once again, especially through southern Manitoba, hitting the freezing mark at Morden a little bit earlier this afternoon. The reason we're seeing things warming up is we've got a low-pressure system moving through southwestern Manitoba a little bit earlier this afternoon, and that's been moving eastward as we headed through the day. And in the Winnipeg area and much of the Red River Valley, we've been seeing that snow begin to fall. Cloud cover encompassing much of Manitoba today, and that system going to continue to move out overnight tonight. We still have a little bit of a separate system in northern Manitoba. That snow beginning to come to an end now, and I think really by the midnight hours here and into early tomorrow morning, most of that is out of our hair and into portions of northwestern Ontario. Still going to be left with mostly cloudy skies tomorrow and some lingering flurries before high pressure moves in and we finally start to see a little more substantial clearing as we get into Thursday. So overnight tonight, generally another 1 to 3 centimeters in portions of southern Manitoba. Some portions of the northern Interlake and northern Manitoba could pick up 5 centimeters here and there. If you're along the Hudson Bay coast, though, I think we're only looking for about another 1 to 2 centimeters. Winds picking up, though, overnight in the Winnipeg area and much of southern Manitoba. Could see those gusts close to 50 kilometers an hour. Still breezy as we head into tomorrow at times. Even as we get into Thursday, portions of Winnipeg and southeastern Manitoba still could see those gusts pick up here and there. And it will be a little bit breezy tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. in Winnipeg. Mostly cloudy still from that system moving through overnight, a temperature of -7. And as we head to the noon hour, that's when we're going to start to see things continue to fully cloud over. Winds picking up closer to around 40 kilometers an hour. That, I think, is about the breeziest we'll get tomorrow afternoon. There is a 40% chance we could see some flurries in the afternoon, with a temperature dropping a little bit by 4 o'clock to around -5 or so. And temperatures are just going to keep dropping as we head over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, I think we'll hit a daytime high around -4. Again, a chance of some afternoon flurries. The temperature drops to around -13, though, as we head into Thursday. That's when we see a little bit more substantial clearing. But keep in mind, during the day, a little bit of wind going to make that feel closer to -20 at times. Overnight low around -20, and then we actually get a bit of a warm up as we head into Friday with some breezy conditions, keeping that sunshine around. That sunshine likely to be a theme as we head into the weekend. A full look at your provincial forecast, Janet, is coming up.
Thank you very much, Ethan. It is the year of the dragon. Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. Our Emily Brass is out in the community tonight at one of the celebrations taking place. Where are you, Emily?
Well, Janet, I'm here at Kumkun Garden restaurant in Chinatown, and the atmosphere is so festive. There are hundreds of people here. You can probably hear the excitement building in the room. People are drinking tea and some beverages that are a bit stronger. And I was speaking with the owner and chef, Jeffrey Young, and he said they're going to be serving 600 meals here tonight with many courses, including chicken and lobster and a whole fish on every table. And then he said it's important that it has the head and the tail on it because that represents good luck for the new year. And this whole event, this banquet, was organized by the Winnipeg Cultural and Community Center. And joining us right now is the president of that group, Philip Lee. He's also the former Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba. Happy New Year, Philip.
Happy New Year, Emily.
So tell us, what is the significance of the Year of the Dragon?
Well, this is the Year of the Dragon. As you know, we celebrated the Year of the Dragon for 4 times already in Chinatown, close to 50 years ago. And the fact that we are growing bigger and bigger, and the fact that we had urban renewal in 1982 through the Core Area Initiative program, and since then every year we celebrated except for 1 year during the intense year of the COVID. But we're delighted to share our joy and the culture with the community at large so that we are part of the multicultural mosaic of Winnipeg. And the Year of the Dragon is very significant in the Chinese tradition because people born in the Year of the Dragon are normally very optimistic and would be blessed with good luck. And I hope that Chinatown will flourish together with the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba.
Okay, and we touched on the food. What is your favorite part of the New Year's?
This year we will particularly order some very authentic Chinese food for all our guests so that they don't eat the more or less the Americanized Chinese food. So it will break the ground for the people to try some real Chinese food.
And one of the dishes every year is longevity noodles. What are those about?
Well, the longevity noodle normally they serve on birthdays, right? But Chinese like to celebrate the New Year as the birthday for everybody.
And how important is this event, this annual banquet, to the Chinese community of Winnipeg?
Well, the Chinese believe in families, right? The family, according to our great philosopher more than 2,000 years ago, Confucius, he told his students and disciples that you have to have a family. Without a family, you won't have cities and towns or municipalities. And without cities, you don't have a province. And without a province, you don't have a country or nation. So families are very important as building blocks for a country.
And you also, it's not just the Chinese community here. Why was it important to extend the invitation to all kinds of Winnipeggers?
Well, because Canada adopted the multiculturalism as our policy. So for part of the multiculturalism, we have to connect with all other ethnic groups to be part of the mosaic.
And what's your favorite part?
Well, I like to see that the Chinatown will continue to flourish and expand. We started out with perhaps only 2 blocks of buildings belonging to Chinatown, then we have multiplied to 4 blocks now. And we have the Chinese gate that was built on King Street. And this Chinese gate is the very unique one in North America that it is also a bridge connecting 2 buildings. Other Chinese gates are not crossovers there.
Well, maybe that's a good thought for the Year of the Dragon. And of course, the Lion Dance is going to kick off the ceremonies. That's coming up in just a moment. Thank you.
Our Emily Brass reporting live tonight with His Honor Philip Lee. Thank you, Emily. Still ahead, the Montreal Bar is launching an awareness campaign to warn people about fake immigration lawyers. They say they're hearing more and more about this all the time. We'll tell you about it after the break. Complaints about fake immigration lawyers are on the rise. So much so, local bar associations are trying to inform newcomers how to spot a fraud. CBC's Alison Northcott has more.
This organization helps refugees settle in Montreal, but staff here have noticed a worrying trend. Newcomers handing over hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to fake immigration lawyers or phony consultants.
Anyone that comes and say, I'm a lawyer, they believe it. They pay, but it results that they were not lawyers or consultants, and it has big impacts.
Fake lawyers will promise you the moon.
The Montreal Bar, which can prosecute fake lawyers in court, says it's been investigating a growing number of complaints around the illegal practice of immigration law.
These fake lawyers are approaching their victims on social media and through the web. They'll go to their victims, say that they're lawyers, take on their files, and if they do it at all, most often it'll be poorly done.
The consequences can be dire, from serious delays to deportation. That's why the bar launched this campaign, to help newcomers understand the risks and how to avoid them, including verifying a lawyer's credentials. The Canadian Bar Association says fake immigration lawyers and unlawful immigration consultants have popped up in other cities too.
It's so easy for someone who doesn't know the rules, the law, and the regulations to make a mistake in an immigration application. It's so difficult and challenging to try and fix it after.
When people take advantage of you,
and Kit Joshi dealt with an unauthorized immigration consultant in Halifax who never submitted his file.
We were new to Canada, not even very familiar with the rules and regulations. The only thing was we were trusting the system and the person who was majorly belonging to our own community.
Ultimately, he got his permanent residency, but the experience delayed the process and cost him thousands of dollars. The Montreal Bar says when it comes to fake lawyers, look out for red flags like promises of a quick and easy process, and file a complaint if you suspect wrongdoing. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
There are also serious warnings about an app that's supposed to help young people make new friends. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection says it has reports that app is being used to sexually exploit minors. CBC's Julia Wong has details.
The Canadian Centre for Child Protection is warning people about an app called Wiz and recommending parents remove this particular app from their children's phones. Now, Wiz is an app that's similar to Tinder, where users can swipe and message different people randomly. The company behind it says it's a place to meet and make new friends, and users are matched with those who are around their own age. Now, this app is meant for people 12 and up, but the Canadian Centre for Child Protection says it has received more than 180 reports about Wiz since 2021, and reports of this app have grown faster than any other platform. The center says the majority of these reports have concerned extortion, where someone is blackmailed with inappropriate images to then send nudes or money to a predator. Some teens we talked to have found themselves in uncomfortable situations with Wiz.
There's a lot of weird people on there. They like to ask for nudes and stuff like that.
What's happening is there are organized criminals that are located mainly in Africa who are connecting with youth using this app. They're seeking out youth that are within that age range, the 13 to 17 age range, and they are then extorting them for money.
On its website, Wiz says it is committed to protecting children online, saying it uses artificial intelligence, works with government bodies, and has a team of safety experts to ensure Wiz is a secure place for users. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Talks aimed at reaching a truce between Israel and Hamas are underway in Cairo. This in the shadow of a feared Israeli military assault on Rafah. Abby Kuhavasan has the latest.
The UN says it hasn't received any evacuation plan for Rafah from Israel, but it says regardless of any plan, it does not participate in forced evacuations. There are about 1.4 million Palestinians sheltering in the south of Gaza and Rafah. Satellite images show just how much more densely populated the area has become in recent months. There are about 5 times more people there now than in mid-October. South Africa has now made an urgent ask to the ICJ to consider using its power to intervene in Rafah. This as mediators discuss a possible end to the war in Cairo, but Washington acknowledging there are gaps. Last week, Hamas demanded that the IDF fully withdraw from Gaza as part of a counter-proposal to end the war and release all the hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected that offer and repeated his stance that the war will continue until complete victory, which includes destroying Hamas. He says that is crucial to the national security of Israel. Yesterday, the IDF rescued 2 hostages from Rafah. Part of that operation involved intense airstrikes that killed more than 100 people, according to the Palestine Red Crescent Society. So far, in more than 4 months of war, the IDF has secured the freedom of 3 hostages. Netanyahu says the military option is the only way to do this, even though dozens of Israelis were released following negotiations back in November. Some analysts say the U.S. is expressing words of concerns about Palestinian civilians, but not using its leverage to pressure Netanyahu to stop the IDF bombardment and possible ground incursion into Rafah. Washington provides just under $4 billion in military aid annually to Israel. Today, the U.S. Senate passed a $14 billion military package to Israel. It must still go through the Republican-controlled House before it reaches Biden's desk. The package also provides just over $9 billion for civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. Abby Kowaldason, CBC News, London.
Canadian politicians today were lashing out at a pro-Palestinian group, at the demonstrators who gathered outside a Toronto hospital last night and reportedly blocked access to the hospital. Mount Sinai Hospital has deep roots in the local Jewish community. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford said the demonstrators may have violated the criminal code. It is illegal to intimidate healthcare workers or to prevent individuals from accessing healthcare.
Folks, get some decency, have common sense. These hospitals are there to save lives. You know, Mount Sinai did everything they could to save my brother's life. He was in there, and they're an incredible hospital, along with all the hospitals around the province. They're there to help people. Do not break the law, because that's exactly what happened.
After the incident at the hospital, demonstrators were seen marching through the streets of downtown Toronto. Police say they're investigating several incidents. The demonstrators could be heard banging drums and chanting support for Intifada, an Arabic term used to denote the Palestinian uprising against Israel. Look at the person on the ledge up there. Still ahead, weather specialist Ethan Williams with his look at the Manitoba forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Many of the world's migratory birds and fish could soon disappear from the skies and the seas. That's according to a new landmark report from the United Nations. The research indicates which species are most at risk and why. Anand Ram has the details.
This is where we study bird migration.
To see just what migratory birds have to go through, here at Western University, they get them moving.
About 80% of the Canadian bird fauna is migratory. They do amazing physiological feats. They'll fly all night long, maybe 12 hours without stopping.
The challenges these birds and other migratory species face are the focus of a landmark UN report covering nearly 1,200 species of birds, mammals, insects, and fish. 1 in 5 of those is threatened with extinction. And for fish, it's even worse. The main problem at sea, say experts, human exploitation.
Hunting, taking for food, taking for sport, taking for sale. And then the second type of impact or threat is bycatch or unintended or incidental capture.
In other words, fish are being killed even when they aren't the target. For birds, necessary pit stops along the way used to be safe. Now, more are shrinking and toxic.
They're flying north during the spring migration directly through the agricultural activities of spring seeding, spring spraying.
The value, say experts, of these animals freely moving is what they bring across different ecosystems.
Salmon, when they migrate upstream into these, nutrient-poor areas, they bring nutrients from the ocean with them. There's pest control, like, what would our forests be like without migratory birds?
Part of a complex engine, and losing these moving parts could destroy ecosystems that ultimately help humans and animals thrive. Anand Ram, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Time now to check back in with Ethan Williams. Ethan, I understand you have some snowfall numbers for us?
Well, Janet, we've seen a little bit of a replenishment in the snowpack, especially in southern Manitoba. Compared to a couple of weeks ago, we were seeing almost no snow on the ground. But in terms of the amount of snow that we've seen in the month of February so far, we're almost halfway through the month, it hasn't really been all that much, really between about 3 and 6 centimeters when you compare places like Swan River even down to around the Winnipeg area. We usually, it's the number on the right that you see there, we usually see around 12 to 14 centimeters in most locations in south and central Manitoba. Now, February actually is our least snowiest winter month out of December through March, so still some room for improvement as we head into the next month. Of course, we can always get those surprise snowstorms in March. But in the meantime, it's just light snow that we're looking for northwestern Ontario tonight, with lows between -7 and -9. Not expecting too much in the way of accumulation in this part of the province. Some snow early this evening for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley. Again, could be another centimeter or 2 through here. Heavier snow as you head through the Arborg area into the portions of the Inner Lake. For southwestern Manitoba, we're actually seeing a little bit of clearing as that system passes you by as we head through the overnight. Some temperatures closer to the Saskatchewan border, getting closer to around -10. Heading into northern Manitoba, this is where we could still see some periods of lingering light snow, some local amounts up to 5 centimeters here overnight tonight. And again, as you get into the far north, that's where we're seeing some of that more Arctic air. We have a cold front that's moved through there, and so temperatures could get close to -30 in some spots, maybe some wind chills close to -40 overnight. Tomorrow, that means that we'll be a bit below seasonal in that part of the province, -20 to -25. But you see how things warm up as we get that cloud cover and lingering snowfall in more southern portions of northern Manitoba. Some sun and breaks in the cloud possible the further south and west you go tomorrow. But as we head into Winnipeg and to the Red River Valley and much of southeastern Manitoba, that cloud cover is lingering with a 40% chance we could see some flurries in the Winnipeg area. As we head into northwestern Ontario, meanwhile, again, similar picture there. We're still looking at some cloud cover, even some lingering light snow or flurries through places like Red Lake and Dryden. We should start to see that come to an end as we get into Thursday, as much of us will begin to clear out. I'll have a look at your full Winnipeg 7-day forecast coming up a little bit later.
Thank you, Ethan. Festival du Voyageur kicks off Friday evening at 6:30. They could really use a little bit more snow, but still, they're getting ready. We're going to meet some of the people working hard to pull things together for you and make it wonderful after the break. Western Canada's largest winter festival begins Friday. Now, I don't know about you, but with so little snow down and so few snow sculptures around, it's kind of hard to believe it's nearly time for Festival du Voyageur, but it is. And some of the people creating art and building playgrounds in the park are being extra creative to make sure it all still works well. I stopped by Voyageur Park in St. Boniface today and spoke to some of the folks I found there getting ready.
I've been sculpting for Festival for roughly 20 years, on and off. So this year is, well, nature has helped me out a little bit. Nature has carved away half of my block already.
So there was more and it's melted down?
Yeah, it was a full block and it...
What is this area called?
I think the sponsor wanted to call it the Snow Forest, but we were low on snow this year, so it's more of just a forest.
Where did you get all of this?
In the ditches with a machete.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just Is it just saplings? What is this?
These are all willow, and there's a bit of dogwood, and then the uprights are jack pine. You go in through the door, and then you can hang out in here, and kind of feels a little bit like a beaver lodge or a muskrat house inside. The other one has 2 doors there, so you can kind of run in and out and play tag and these kind of things. These tunnels here are going to get all covered up in snow, so that you don't feel like you're going through a culvert so much as a snow tunnel.
But that's what it is. It's a culvert.
It's a culvert in disguise. It doesn't have its disguise yet. It's just weaving. You just kind of do the same thing over and over, and it piles up, and I stand up on the wall and kind of compress it down so it gets nice and tight. And I've never woven anything this big before, but I'm having a blast. This took about 2 days to weave, and that one I started yesterday evening. When I close my eyes now, I just see like a bunch of willows interwoven. That's kind of nice. I had a dream about weaving willows last night, and my hands are sore.
We can hear the machinery. Everybody's hard at work. They're gathering what snow they can find to make it look wintry and snowy here. What is it that you would like Winnipeggers to know about Festival this year?
This year? Well, I think this year, there's the world since the pandemic has been hard and challenging, and it's really important to gather, especially, in the middle of winter when it's a hard time for so many people.
Everybody seems to think this is the worst year for snow.
Oh, this is not the worst year.
No? What do you remember?
The worst year was the year that the whole site was just a big puddle. And the blocks, they couldn't even keep the blocks up. They actually had to take down the blocks because they were at a hazard of collapsing. And everyone was wearing rubber boots instead of moccasins and snowshoes.
So this is nothing. We can do it. Hey ho.
We are doing it.
We are doing it.
It's happening. Hey ho.
Hey Ho Festival starts Friday. Great bands performing there as well, so be sure to check out their website. And you might not have to bundle up as much as in past years. Boy, it looks messy on our camera, huh? Ethan's back with your 7-day forecast. Your daily lift is also still ahead.
Well, after we see that lingering cloud cover and chance of flurries tomorrow, things really clearing out as we head into Thursday, Friday. Keep in mind, we'll see a little bit of a dip in temperature, especially as we head into Thursday. But things quickly warming up into the weekend. We'll see a mix of sun and cloud, breezy at times Friday, Saturday, before more normal conditions as we head into the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week, with still, Janet, some sunshine sticking around.
Thanks very much, Ethan. Hearing music from the 80s isn't that different, but hearing music from their 80s is. Here's your Daily Lift. These South Korean rappers are all in their 80s. Sunny and the Seven Princesses are K-pop's latest export. Their songs are about rural life. They've started to spread far beyond their hometown. More than 77,000 views on YouTube. And the group just formed last year, so who knows what they could have in store for them yet. See, it's never too late. Thank you for being with us. Hope to see you tonight at 11. Good night.